The research ship Columbia drifted through the dark space near the Kepler system. Its hull was white and blue, with the Earth Alliance symbol painted on both sides. Inside, 12 humans worked quietly at their stations, studying the stars and planets around them. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge looking out at the endless black. He was 42 years old, with gray hair and tired eyes. This was his 15th mission into deep space, but something felt different this time. The readings they were getting from the nearby planet made him nervous. "Captain, I'm picking up some strange energy signatures from the surface," said Amy Collins from her station. She was only 19, the youngest person on the ship. Her red hair was pulled back in a ponytail and her green eyes were bright with curiosity. Amy had joined the crew 6 months ago as their communications specialist. "What kind of energy?" Jake asked, walking over to her station. Amy frowned at her screen. "It's not like anything in our databases. The patterns are too complex to be natural, but they don't match any known technology either." Dr. Lisa Grant looked up from her medical station. She was in her 30s with short black hair and smart brown eyes. "Could it be a new civilization? We haven't found any signs of intelligent life in this sector before." "Maybe," Jake said. "But we need to be careful. Run a full spectrum analysis. Amy and Lisa, make sure the crew is ready for anything." The Columbia had been exploring this part of space for 3 weeks. They were looking for new planets that humans could live on and studying the different types of life they found. So far, they had discovered 2 planets with basic plants and animals, but nothing that could think or build things. Amy's fingers moved quickly over her controls. "Captain, the energy is getting stronger. It's like something big is moving down. There." "How big?" Jake asked. "Really big. Bigger than our ship." Jake felt a cold feeling in his stomach. "Everyone, return to your stations. Prepare for possible contact with unknown forces." The crew moved quickly. There were 12 of them in total. Besides Jake, Amy, and Lisa, there was pilot Ben Carter, engineer Ruth Adams, scientist Kevin Murphy, security officer Danny Ross, and 5 other specialists. They were all good at their jobs, but none of them had ever met aliens before. "Captain," Amy said, her voice tight with worry, "something's coming up from the planet. It's huge." Jake looked at the main screen. A massive shape was rising from the planet's surface. It was black and silver with strange angles that hurt to look at. The ship was at least 5 times bigger than the Columbia. "Red alert," Jake said. "All hands to battle stations." The alien ship moved through space like a giant predator. It had no lights that humans could see, but Amy's instruments showed it. Was full of energy and activity. Strange symbols glowed along its hull, pulsing like a heartbeat. "They're scanning us," Amy reported. "The scans are very detailed. They're looking at everything. Our ship, our weapons, even our life signs." "Can you contact them?" Jake asked. Amy tried different frequencies and communication methods. "I'm sending standard first contact messages, but they're not responding. Wait." Her face went pale. "Captain, they're jamming our communications. We can't call for help." The alien ship moved closer. Up close, it looked even more frightening. Its surface was covered in weapons that looked like nothing humans had ever seen. Strange creatures moved behind transparent sections of the hull, but they were too far away to see clearly. "They're powering up weapons," Ruth called out from the engineering station. "Captain, we can't fight that thing. It's too big, too advanced." Jake knew she was right. The Columbia was a research ship, not a warship. They had some basic defenses, but nothing that could stop something that size. "Prepare to run," Jake ordered. "Ben, get us out of here, maximum speed." Ben's hands flew over the pilot controls. "I'm trying, Captain, but they're holding us with some kind of tractor beam. We can't move." The alien ship's weapons started to glow brighter. Then, without warning, they fired. The beams hit the Columbia's engines and weapon systems. The ship shook hard, and several crew members fell to the floor. "Engines are down," Ruth reported. "Weapons are offline. They disabled us without destroying us." "They want us alive," Lisa said quietly. Jake nodded grimly. "Everyone stay calm. We're going to get through this." But even as he said it, Jake could see the fear in his crew's eyes. Amy was gripping her station so hard her knuckles were white. She was just a kid, barely out of school. She didn't deserve this. The alien ship moved even closer. Parts of its hull opened up, revealing docking tubes that stretched out toward the Columbia. The tubes attached to the human ship with loud metallic sounds that echoed through the corridors. "They're boarding us," Danny said, checking his weapons. "Should we fight?" Jake looked around at his crew. They were scientists and explorers, not soldiers. Most of them had never been in a real fight. "No, we surrender. Maybe we can talk to them, learn what they want." Heavy footsteps echoed through the Columbia's corridors. The aliens were coming aboard. Amy stood up from her station, her legs shaking slightly. "Captain, what if they want to hurt us?" she asked. Jake put a hand on her shoulder. "We stick together. No matter what happens, we look out for each other." The bridge doors opened with a hiss. The creatures that walked in were unlike anything the humans had ever seen. They were tall, maybe 7 feet, with gray skin that looked like stone. Their eyes were black and cold, and they moved with the confidence of predators who had never known fear. The leader wore more decorations than the others. When he spoke, his voice was like grinding metal. "I am High Interrogator Vextar of the Zephyrian Empire. You are now prisoners of the Empire." "We're peaceful explorers," Jake said, stepping forward. "We mean no harm to anyone." Vextar's black eyes studied Jake for a moment, then moved to look at each crew member. When his gaze fell on Amy, it stopped. He tilted his head slightly, like a bird studying a bug. "Humans," he said slowly. "We have heard of your species. Young, weak, primitive, perfect for our purposes." "What purposes?" Jake demanded. "We study pain," Vextar said simply. "How different species react to suffering. What breaks them, what makes them beg." He gestured to his soldiers. "Take them." The Zephyrian soldiers moved forward. They were fast and strong, much stronger than humans. Jake tried to fight, but one of them hit him with a weapon that sent electricity through his body. He fell to the floor, unable to move. "Don't hurt them," Amy shouted, running toward Jake. Vextar caught her arm effortlessly. His grip was like iron. "Interesting. The young one shows courage, or perhaps foolishness." He studied her face. "You will be first." "No." Jake struggled to get up, but the electricity had left him weak. "Take me instead. I'm the captain. I'm responsible for this crew." "The young are more interesting," Vextar said. "They break in different ways. Their pain is purer." Amy looked back at her crewmates as the aliens dragged her away. Her green eyes were full of fear but also determination. "Don't give up," she called to them. "Don't let them win." The Zephyrians forced the rest of the crew to follow, but they took Amy down a different corridor. Jake could hear her footsteps echoing in the distance, getting fainter and fainter. As they were pushed through the alien ship's corridors, Jake made a silent promise. Somehow he would find a way to save Amy and get his crew home. He didn't know how, but he would find a way. The corridors of the Zephyrian ship were dark and cold, filled with the sounds of machinery and the whispers of creatures the humans couldn't see. Somewhere in this nightmare, Amy Collins was facing her worst fears alone, and High Interrogator Vextar was just getting started. The Zephyrian torture chamber was a room that nightmares were made of. The walls were black metal covered in strange symbols that seemed to move in the dim light. Machines with sharp edges and glowing parts filled every corner. The air smelled like electricity and fear. Amy Collins stood in the center of the room, her hands chained above her head. The metal restraints were cold against her wrists. She had been trying not to show her terror, but her heart was beating so fast she thought it might burst. High Interrogator Vextar walked around her slowly, like a hunter studying his prey. His black eyes never left her face. "You humans are interesting creatures," he said in his grinding voice. "So small, so fragile. Yet you explore the galaxy as if you own it." "We explore because we want to learn," Amy said, trying to keep her voice steady. "We don't want to hurt anyone." Vextar laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Learn? What could primitives like you possibly learn from the galaxy?" You have been spacefaring for what, a few hundred years? My people have ruled the stars for 10,000 years. He walked to one of the machines and pressed several buttons. The device began to hum with power. Blue electricity danced between metal prongs. This device disrupts nerve signals. It makes every cell in your body feel like it is burning. Amy's breath caught in her throat. She had read about torture in history books, but she never imagined she would experience it herself. I won't tell you anything about Earth or our colonies. Oh, but you will, Vextar said. Everyone breaks eventually. Some take longer than others, but they all break. The only question is how much you will suffer first. Meanwhile, in another part of the ship, the rest of the Columbia's crew was locked in a holding cell. The walls were transparent, allowing them to see out but not to escape. Captain Jake Morrison paced back and forth like a caged animal. We have to do something, he said for the 10th time. We can't just leave Amy with those monsters. Dr. Lisa Grant sat against the wall, her face pale with worry. Jake, there's nothing we can do. We're locked in here, and even if we got out, we don't know how to fight these aliens. I don't care, Jake said. She's just a kid. This is my fault. I should have listened to my instincts and stayed away from this system. Engineer Ruth Adams looked up from the corner where she had been studying the cell's locking mechanism. Captain, I think I might be able to override the lock, but it will take time. And even then, we don't have weapons. Security Officer Danny. Ross clenched his fists. I don't need weapons, I just need to get my hands on that Vextar creature. Danny, you saw how strong they are, Lisa said quietly. One of them threw you across the room like you weighed nothing. Before anyone could respond, the cell's walls suddenly became screens, showing the interior of the torture chamber. Amy was clearly visible, still chained and facing Vextar. No, Jake whispered. They're going to make us watch. Vextar's voice came through speakers in the cell. Your captain and crew will witness everything, young human. They will hear every scream, see every moment of your suffering. Perhaps their pain will make yours more interesting. Amy looked directly at one of the cameras, knowing her friends could see her. Don't watch, she said. Close your eyes. Don't let them make you part of this. But they couldn't look away. Even though it hurt to watch, they couldn't abandon Amy by turning their backs on her suffering. Vextar activated the first machine. Blue electricity arced through Amy's body. She bit down on her lip to stop herself from screaming, but the pain was unlike anything she had ever felt. It was like being burned from the inside out. Where is your home world? Vextar asked calmly. Amy gasped for breath. I won't tell you. The electricity increased. This time, Amy couldn't stop the scream that tore from her throat. In the holding cell, Jake slammed his fist against the wall. Stop this, he shouted at the cameras. I'm the captain, take me instead. Vextar ignored him completely. He was focused only on Amy. Your friends care about you, I can use that. Every time you refuse to answer, their pain grows. Is your silence worth their suffering? Amy's head hung down, her red hair falling across her face. They would want me to stay strong. That's what humans do. We protect each other. Foolish, Vextar said. He moved to another machine, this one covered in needles and tubes. This device injects microscopic machines into your bloodstream. They eat you from the inside, cell by cell. The pain is quite remarkable. For 6 hours, the torture continued. Vextar used every device in the chamber, each one designed to cause maximum pain without killing quickly. He asked the same questions over and over. Where is Earth? How many human colonies exist? What are your military capabilities? Amy never answered. Even when the pain became so intense that she lost consciousness, she never spoke. Each time she woke up, Vextar would start again. Dr. Lisa Grant monitored Amy's vital signs through the cameras, using her medical knowledge to track the young woman's condition. Her heart rate is dangerously high, she whispered to the others. Her body can't take much more of this. In the torture chamber, Amy's strength was finally failing. Her body was covered in burns and cuts. Her breathing was shallow and rapid, but her eyes still held defiance. You are stronger than I expected, Vextar admitted. Most species begin talking within the first hour. But humans, you are different. Stupidly stubborn, but different. We don't give up, Amy whispered, her voice barely audible. That's what makes us human. Vextar activated the final machine, the most cruel device in his collection. It sent waves of energy directly into the brain, causing pain that couldn't be blocked or ignored. This will break your mind completely. After this, you will tell me everything, even if you don't want to. The energy hit Amy's brain like a hammer. She screamed louder than before, her body convulsing against the chains. In the holding cell, her crewmates watched in horror as their youngest member suffered beyond human endurance. Her brain activity is spiking, Lisa said, tears streaming down her face. This is killing her. Amy's eyes found the camera one last time. With her final breath, she spoke to her friends. Don't let them win. Remember who we are. Remember what humans can do when we have to. Her heart stopped. The machines monitoring her vital signs went flat. Amy Collins, 19 years old, communications specialist of the research vessel Columbia, was dead. Vextar stood over her body, disappointed. Interesting, she died without breaking. This is unusual. He turned to his assistants. Dispose of the body. We will continue with the others. In the holding cell, Jake Morrison fell to his knees. The strongest man any of them knew broke down completely. Amy, he whispered. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. Lisa Grant stared at the screen in shock. In all her years as a doctor, she had never felt so helpless. Danny Ross punched the wall until his knuckles bled. Ruth Adams sat in the corner, sobbing quietly, but none of them noticed something strange happening in the torture chamber. Amy's body, left alone while Vextar prepared for his next victim, showed the faintest signs of something impossible. Deep in her cells, something was stirring. Something that had been sleeping in human DNA for thousands of years, waiting for a moment of ultimate crisis. Something that death itself could not stop. The machines that monitored life signs had been turned off, so no one saw the first, tiny blip of brain activity. No one saw the microscopic healing beginning at the cellular level. Amy Collins was dead. But death, it seemed, was not the end of her story. It was just the beginning. 37 minutes had passed since Amy Collins died in the Zephyrian torture chamber. Her body lay still on the cold metal floor where Vexatar's assistants had dropped it. The aliens had turned off all the monitoring equipment and left her, alone while they prepared the next human for questioning. In the holding cell, Captain Jake Morrison sat with his head in his hands. The other crew members were quiet, each dealing with their grief in their own way. Dr. Lisa Grant stared at the blank screen where they had watched Amy die. She kept thinking about the young woman's last words, her final act of defiance even in death. She was the bravest person I ever knew, Ruth Adams whispered. 19 years old, and she died like a hero. She shouldn't have had to, Jake said, bitterly. This is all my fault. I brought us here. Danny Ross was pacing again, his hands clenched into fists. When I get out of here, I'm going to kill every one of these monsters. Danny, stop, Lisa said quietly. Violence won't bring Amy back. But even as they grieved, something impossible was happening in the torture chamber. Amy's body began to change in ways that defied everything the Zephyrians knew about biology. At first, it was barely visible. The cuts on her skin started to close, so slowly that no one would have noticed unless they were watching carefully. Her burned flesh began to heal, new cells growing to replace the damaged ones. Deep inside her chest, her heart gave a single, weak beat. Then another. The process accelerated. Amy's brain, which had been completely shut down, began to show activity. Not the chaotic spikes of someone dying, but organized patterns that grew stronger by the minute. Her DNA was rewriting itself, activating sequences that had been dormant for thousands of years. Her eyes opened. They were no longer the bright green they had been before. Now they glowed with a soft blue light like stars in the darkness. Amy sat up smoothly without the confusion or weakness that should have come after death. She looked around the torture chamber with new understanding. She could see energy patterns flowing through the alien machines. She could hear conversations happening 3 levels away. She could feel the heartbeats of every living creature on the ship, including her crewmates in their cell. The chains that had held her were still attached to her wrists, but when she stood up they snapped like paper. The metal that had been strong enough to hold a struggling human was nothing to whatever she had become. Amy walked to the chamber's main door. It was locked with Zephyrian technology that humans didn't understand, but somehow she knew exactly how it worked. She placed her hand on the control panel and the door slid open without resistance. 2 Zephyrian guards stood outside. When they saw her, their black eyes widened with shock and fear. One reached for his weapon, but Amy moved faster than their eyes could follow. She touched the alien's forehead gently, and he collapsed unconscious. The second guard tried to run, but Amy was already behind him. Another touch, and he fell as well. "Sleep," she said softly. "I don't want to hurt you, but I won't let you hurt my friends." Her voice was different now. It carried power and authority that made the walls themselves seem to listen. Amy walked through the corridors of the Zephyrian ship like she owned it. Aliens who saw her coming stepped aside or fled in terror. She wasn't trying to be frightening, but something about her presence made every creature on the ship feel small and weak. The Zephyrians, who had never known fear, suddenly understood what it meant to face something beyond their comprehension. High Interrogator Vexitar was in his command center, preparing to torture Captain Morrison next. He was studying human anatomy charts when alarms began blaring throughout the ship. "What is happening?" he demanded. One of his technicians was staring at a screen in disbelief. "Sir, the human female, the one who died. She's moving through the ship." "Impossible," Vexitar snarled. "I watched her die myself. Her heart stopped. Her brain activity ceased. Sir, you need to see this." The main screen showed security footage from the corridors. Amy Collins walked calmly through areas of the ship that should have been impossible for her to reach. Doors opened for her without being unlocked. Guards fell unconscious at her touch. She moved with purpose, heading directly toward the holding cells. "This is not possible," Vexitar whispered. In 10,000 years of galactic dominance, his people had never encountered anything like this. The dead did not return to life. Weak species did not suddenly develop impossible abilities. Amy reached the holding cell where her crewmates were, imprisoned. The energy barrier that kept them locked inside flickered and died when she approached. The heavy door swung open. "Amy?" Jake Morrison looked up, certain he was hallucinating. "But we saw you." "I died," Amy said simply. But death wasn't the end, it was the beginning. Lisa Grant stared at her in medical shock. "This is impossible. I monitored your vital signs. Your heart stopped for over 30 minutes. Your brain showed no activity." "I know," Amy said. She looked at each of her crewmates with eyes that glowed, like small stars. "Something in our DNA activated when I died. Something that's been sleeping for thousands of years, waiting for the right moment." "What are you talking about?" Ruth asked. Amy closed her eyes for a moment, accessing memories that weren't her own. "Humans aren't what we thought we were. We're not just another species that evolved on Earth. We're something more. Something that was designed to survive anything the universe could throw at us." She opened her eyes again. The torture, the death, it was a trigger. It awakened abilities that our ancestors locked away because they were too dangerous. But when humanity faces extinction, when our very survival is threatened, those locks break. Danny Ross stepped forward. "Amy, you're glowing. And you broke those chains like they were made of string." "I can do much more than that," Amy said. "I can see the energy patterns that power this ship. I can understand their technology just by looking at it. I can feel every living thing within miles." Jake stood up slowly. Are you still Amy?" Amy smiled, and for a moment she looked like the 19-year-old girl they remembered. "I'm still me, Captain. But I'm also more than I was. The pain they put me through, the death, it changed me at the genetic level." She turned to look toward the command center. "And I'm not the only one. I can feel it starting in all of you. The awakening is spreading. Lisa felt a strange warmth in her chest, like electricity running through her veins. What's happening? To us. Evolution, Amy said. Forced evolution triggered by extreme trauma. We're becoming what humanity was always meant to be. High Interrogator Vextar appeared at the end of the corridor with a squad of heavily armed soldiers. His stone-gray face was twisted with rage and confusion. This is impossible. The dead do not return. Weak species do not transform. Amy turned to face him calmly. You made a mistake, Vextar. You thought humans were weak because we're young, because we haven't conquered the galaxy like you have. But you never asked why we survived on a planet that tried to kill us every day for millions of years. She took a step toward the Zephyrians. They raised their weapons, but the energy beams passed right through her as if she were made of light. You never wondered why we kept exploring, kept pushing into space even when we found creatures like you who wanted to hurt us. You thought it was stupidity, but it wasn't. Amy was close enough to touch Vexitar now. He tried to back away, but his legs wouldn't obey him. It was determination. It was the refusal to give up no matter what the odds. And when you push a species like that to the very edge of extinction, she placed her glowing hand on his armored chest. You discover what they're really capable of. Vextar collapsed to his knees, his mind overwhelmed by visions of Earth's history. He saw humans surviving ice ages, plagues, wars, and disasters that would have destroyed other species. He saw them reaching for the stars even when they barely understood fire. You awakened something that should have stayed sleeping, Amy said, and now, all of humanity will know what we really are. Behind her, the other crew members were beginning to change. Their eyes were starting to glow with the same inner light. They could feel new strength flowing through their bodies, new understanding, filling their minds. The age of humanity's innocence was over. The age of their true power had begun. The change in Dr. Lisa Grant happened first. She felt a burning sensation in her chest like fire spreading through her blood. Her hands began to shake, but not from fear. It was from power building inside her body. Lisa, are you okay? Captain. Jake Morrison reached out to touch her arm, but she pulled back. I can feel it, she whispered, staring at her hands. I can feel everything. Every cell in my body is changing. Amy Collins watched her crewmates with glowing eyes. She could see the transformation beginning in each of them. Their DNA was rewriting itself, just as hers had done. The torture and death she had endured was like a signal sent out to all of humanity, waking up abilities that had been sleeping for thousands of years. Don't fight it, Amy told them. The change is part of who we really are. We were never just simple explorers. We're survivors. We're meant to be more than what we were. Lisa's eyes began to glow with soft golden light. She looked at her hands again and saw that she could see through them, could see the energy flowing through her veins like liquid starlight. I can see inside people now. I can see their injuries, their diseases, their pain, and I think I can fix them. Ruth Adams was next. The engineer had always been good with machines, but now she could understand any technology just by looking at it. The alien computers around them made perfect sense to her now. She could see how they worked, how to control them, how to make them do whatever she wanted. The ship's systems, Ruth said, her voice filled with wonder. I can see all of it, every circuit, every power flow, every data stream. It's like reading a book written in a language I've always known but never remembered. Danny Ross felt the change hit him like a punch to the gut. But instead of pain, it brought strength. His muscles grew larger and denser. His reflexes became lightning fast. He could hear conversations happening on the other side of the ship, could smell the fear of the Zephyrians hiding in their quarters. I feel like I could tear this ship apart with my bare hands, Danny said, flexing his fingers. And I think I actually could. Captain Jake Morrison was the last to change, and his transformation was different from the others. Where Amy had gained power over energy and matter, where Lisa could heal and Danny could fight, Jake's change was in his mind. He could suddenly understand languages he had never heard before. He could see patterns and connections that had been invisible to him before. I can hear them, Jake said. looking toward the ship's command center. The Zephyrians, they're panicking. They're sending messages to their homeworld, but they don't know how to explain what's happening. High Interrogator Vextar was still on his knees, overwhelmed by the visions Amy had shown him. But other Zephyrians were taking action. They sealed blast doors throughout the ship, trying to contain the humans. They activated emergency weapons systems, hoping to kill the transformed crew before they could escape. "They're trying to lock us in," Ruth said, her glowing eyes reflecting data streams from the ship's computers. "But their technology is so simple compared to what I can see now. Watch this." Ruth placed her hand on a wall panel. The entire ship's lighting system responded to her touch, turning the corridors into a rainbow of colors. Then she shut down the artificial gravity in the sections where the Zephyrians were hiding, sending them floating helplessly through their own ship. "How did you do that?" Ben Carter asked. The pilot had been quiet during the transformation, but now his eyes were starting to glow with silver light. "I don't know," Ruth admitted. "I just understood. Like the knowledge was always there, waiting for me to need it." Amy stood up and walked to the blast door that the Zephyrians had sealed to trap them. She placed both hands on the thick metal and closed her eyes. The door began to glow with blue light, the same color as her eyes. Then it simply dissolved, turning into particles of light that drifted away like dust. "The ship is ours now," Amy said. "They can't stop us with their technology. They can't hide from us in their own ship. We've become something they don't understand and can't fight." The transformed humans moved through the Zephyrian ship like forces of nature. Danny Ross found a group of soldiers trying to set up a defensive position. He moved so fast they couldn't even see him coming. Instead of killing them, he simply touched each one, and they fell unconscious. "I could have killed them all in seconds," Danny told the others. "But I don't want to. We're not monsters like they are." Lisa Grant found the ship's medical bay, where several injured Zephyrians were being treated. Without thinking, she began healing them, her golden light flowing into their bodies and repairing their wounds. The alien doctors stared in amazement, as she did in minutes what their advanced technology couldn't do at all. "Why are you helping us?" one of the Zephyrian doctors asked. "We are your enemies." "Because that's what humans do," Lisa said. "We help, even when we shouldn't. Even when it doesn't make sense." Ruth Adams took control of the ship's main computer system. The Zephyrian artificial intelligence tried to fight her, but it was like a child trying to arm wrestle an adult. She locked down all the weapons, opened all the sealed doors, and began broadcasting a message to the entire Zephyrian fleet. "This is the human ship Columbia." Ruth's voice echoed through every Zephyrian vessel in the system. "We are no longer your prisoners. We are no longer weak. We are no longer afraid." Jake Morrison found High Interrogator Vextar in the command center, still kneeling on the floor. The alien's mind was struggling to process what he had seen in Amy's visions. "You understand now," Jake said, his voice calm but filled with authority. "You thought you were dealing with a primitive species. You thought torture and death would break us, but you were wrong." Vextar looked up with his black eyes, and for the first time in his long life, he felt genuine fear. "What are you?" "We're human," Jake said simply. "We're the species that survived on a world that tried to kill us every day. We're the ones who looked up at the stars and decided to reach for them, even when we didn't have the technology to get there. We're the ones who never give up, no matter how impossible the odds." He knelt down so he was at eye level with the alien. "And you just taught us what we're really capable of." Amy Collins appeared in the command center, her glowing form casting blue light on the walls. Behind her came the rest of the crew, each of them transformed, each of them radiating power that the Zephyrians couldn't understand. "Your empire has ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years, Amy said to Vextar. "You've conquered species, destroyed civilizations, and spread pain across the stars. You thought you were the strongest, the most advanced, the most dangerous." She gestured to her crewmates. "But you never met humans before. You never met a species that gets stronger when you try to break them. You never met creatures who turn suffering into power." Vextar struggled to speak. "This is impossible. Evolution doesn't work this way. Species don't just transform overnight. Normal species don't." Amy agreed. But we're not normal. We never were. We're the children of a world that taught us to adapt or die. And when you pushed us to the edge of death, we adapted. Ruth Adams stepped forward, her silver eyes bright with new knowledge. I can see your communications network. Every ship, every planet, every outpost in your empire. They're all connected, all waiting for orders. What are you going to do? Vexitar asked. Amy smiled, but it wasn't a kind smile. It was the smile of a predator who had just realized she was stronger than everything that had tried to hunt her. We're going to send a message, she said, to every species in the galaxy, to every empire, every civilization, every creature that thinks humanity is weak. She looked directly at Vextar. We're going to show them what happens when you hurt our family. The transformation was complete. 12 humans had entered the Zephyrian ship as prisoners. Now they stood as something new, something powerful, something that would change the galaxy forever, and they were just getting started. Amy Collins stood at the center of the Zephyrian command bridge, her glowing blue eyes focused on the massive communication array. The technology that had seemed impossible to understand just hours ago now made perfect sense to her transformed mind. She could see the data pathway stretching across the galaxy, connecting every major civilization. Ruth, can you help me access their entire network? Amy asked. Engineer Ruth Adams nodded, her silver eyes reflecting streams of data that only she could see. Already done. I've broken through every security system they have. We now have access to the communication networks of the Zephyrian Empire, the Galactic Council, the Trade Federation, and dozens of independent systems. Captain, Jake Morrison watched the alien crew members who had been brought to the bridge. The Zephyrians stood with their heads down, no longer the proud conquerors they had been. High Interrogator Vextar sat in a corner, his black eyes staring at nothing. Are you sure about this, Amy? Jake asked. Once we send this message, there's no going back. The galaxy will know that humanity has changed. Amy turned to look at her captain and friend. They need to know, Jake. What happened here today isn't just about us. It's about every human in the galaxy, every colony, every explorer, every family trying to make a new life among the stars. Dr. Lisa Grant was using her new healing abilities to treat some of the Zephyrian crew members who had been injured during the takeover. Her golden light flowed into their bodies, fixing wounds that their own technology couldn't heal. Why do you help them? Asked a young Zephyrian technician. We are your enemies. Because that's who we are, Lisa said gently. Humans help people who need help, even people who hurt us. That's not weakness, that's strength. Danny Ross stood, guard near the main entrance, his enhanced senses monitoring the entire ship. Amy, I'm picking up movement throughout the ship. The Zephyrians are scared, but they're not trying to fight anymore, they're just trying to stay out of our way. Good, Amy said. I don't want to hurt anyone else, but I want them to understand what they've done. She placed her hands on the communication console. The entire array lit up with blue light as her power flowed through it. Across the galaxy, communication systems that had been functioning normally suddenly showed an incoming message with a priority level that shouldn't have been possible. Amy's voice, amplified by technology she now understood better than its creators, reached every inhabited world in known space. My name is Amy Collins, I am human. 37 minutes ago I died. On thousands of worlds, beings of hundreds of different species stopped what they were doing to listen. The message was being broadcast on every frequency, in every language, impossible to ignore or block. I died because creatures called Zephyrians decided that humans were weak. They thought we were just another primitive species to be conquered and tortured. They were wrong. In the capital city of the Galactic Council, ancient beings who had ruled space for millions of years looked at each other with growing concern. They had heard of humans, the young species that had recently begun exploring beyond their home system. But this message was coming through technology far beyond what humans should have possessed. The Zephyrians captured my ship and my crew. They tortured me for 6 hours using every cruel device they had. They made my friends watch as they tried to break me. They wanted information about Earth, about our colonies, about our defenses. Amy's Voice remained calm, but underneath the words was a power that made listeners across the galaxy feel suddenly small and vulnerable. I never told them anything. When the pain became too much for my body to handle, I died rather than betray my people. But death was not the end. It was the beginning. On the bridge of the captured Zephyrian ship, Ruth Adams was monitoring the responses to Amy's broadcast. "Amy, we're getting reactions from across the galaxy. Some species are frightened, others are curious. The Galactic Council is trying to trace the source of the transmission. Let them," Amy said. "I want them to know exactly where this message is coming from." She continued speaking to the galaxy. "When I died, something awakened in my DNA. Something that has been sleeping in all humans for thousands of years. My death sent a signal to every human in the galaxy, and now we are all changing." This was not entirely true yet, but Amy could feel it starting. Through some connection she didn't fully understand, she could sense humans on distant worlds beginning to experience the same transformation. The trigger had been pulled, and now it was spreading. "We are not the weak, primitive species you thought we were. We are the children of a world that tried to kill us every day for millions of years. We learned to survive anything. We learned to adapt to any threat. And when you push us to the very edge of extinction, we become something new." Captain Jake. Morrison activated his own communication link. As the captain of the Columbia, he had the authority to speak for Earth's government. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Earth Alliance research vessel Columbia. I confirm everything Amy Collins has said. We were peaceful explorers. We came in friendship. But we were met with torture and murder." His voice carried the new authority that came with his transformation. "The Zephyrian Empire has awakened something in humanity that should have remained sleeping. We did not choose this war, but we will finish it." High Interrogator Vextar finally looked up from his corner. "You cannot declare war on the entire galaxy. Even with your new abilities, there are billions of us and only millions of you." Amy turned to face him, her glowing eyes filled with something that was not quite anger but was far more dangerous. "You still don't understand. This isn't about numbers. This isn't about ships or weapons or technology." She gestured to her transformed crewmates. "You took 12 humans prisoner. Now you face 12 beings who can control your technology, heal any wound, move faster than your eyes can follow, and understand your thoughts before you think them." She smiled, and every Zephyrian on the bridge took a step backward. "And we are just the beginning. Every human in the galaxy is changing. Every colony, every settlement, every explorer. In a few days there will be millions of us." Ruth Adams spoke up from her position at the communications console. "Amy, I'm getting reports from human colonies across the galaxy. People are calling in strange symptoms. Enhanced strength, glowing eyes, the ability to understand alien technology. It's happening everywhere." Amy nodded and returned to her galactic broadcast. "We tried to be peaceful. We tried to explore the galaxy with respect for all life. But you have shown us that the galaxy is not a peaceful place. You have shown us that the only language you understand is power." Her voice grew harder. "So we will speak to you in power. The Zephyrian Empire has 72 hours to surrender completely. Every ship, every world, every soldier. They will submit to human judgment for their crimes." The announcement sent shockwaves through every government in the galaxy. Some species had never heard of humans before this day. Others had dismissed them as irrelevant newcomers. Now they were all scrambling to understand what this meant. "Any species that has harmed humans, enslaved humans, or attacked human settlements will also face judgment. We have been keeping track. We remember every slight, every act of aggression, every time you thought we were too weak to fight back." Amy's voice softened slightly. "But we also remember kindness. Species that have helped humans, traded fairly with us, or simply left us alone will find us to be the same friends we have always been. We do not seek to rule the galaxy. We seek only to ensure that no one ever again makes the mistake the Zephyrians made today." She paused, letting her words sink in across 1,000 worlds. "You may think this is impossible. You may think that one species cannot challenge the entire galaxy, but you thought humans were weak, and you were wrong about that too. Amy looked directly into the camera that was broadcasting her image across space. My name is Amy Collins. I am 19 years old. I died today and I came back stronger. I am human. We are human. And the galaxy will never underestimate us again. She ended the broadcast, but the silence that followed was more powerful than any words. Across the galaxy, the age of human innocence was over. The age of human dominance had begun. High Interrogator. Vextar stared at Amy with something approaching awe. You have just declared war on every major power in the galaxy. Amy smiled. No, Vextar. You declared war on us when you decided to torture a 19-year-old girl to death. We're just making sure the galaxy knows how that war is going to end.